There is a strange, silent threshold that happens when your income doubles. But your bank balance stays exactly the same. You assume that making more money will finally give you room to breathe. But instead, you wake up 5 years later realizing you haven't built wealth at all. You've simply become more expensive to maintain. Most people believe that living paycheck to paycheck is an income problem. We tell ourselves that if we could just cross that next threshold, a 20% raise, a six-figure salary, a higher-paying job, the financial anxiety would vanish. But if you look closely at how human psychology actually handles money, you realize something unsettling. Income rarely solves a spending problem, it usually just scales it up. When you earn $30,000 a year, your financial survival is simple and brutal. You cut back because you have to. Every purchase is a conscious calculation because the margins are paper thin. But as your income climbs to $80,000, $100,000, or $200,000, a quiet psychological shift occurs. The brain stops filtering purchases through the lens of survival and starts filtering them through the lens of entitlement. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. But in personal finance, it manifests as a far more dangerous phenomenon, baseline inflation. When you upgrade your apartment, trade up for a newer car, or start eating at slightly nicer restaurants, your brain doesn't register these changes as temporary luxuries. Within weeks, it reclassifies them as the new minimum standard of living. This is why a person making $200,000 a year can lie awake at 3 a.m. stressed about money, experiencing the exact same physiological spike in cortisol as someone making a fraction of that amount. The threat feels identical because the margin between their income and their obligations remains razor thin. They haven't built a fortress, they've just built a bigger cage. Consider the modern vehicle purchase, perhaps the single most effective engine of wealth destruction ever created. Decades ago, a car loan was a short-term inconvenience spanning 3 or 4 years. Today, 7 and 8-year financing terms have become normalized, engineered specifically to make astronomical purchase prices feel manageable through a low monthly payment. When you look at a $80,000 truck or luxury SUV, you aren't just looking at metal and leather. You are looking at a machine designed to capture your future labor. To afford that $800 monthly payment, you agree to trade away your flexibility for the next decade. You convince yourself it's a reasonable expense because you need reliable transportation, completely ignoring that the moment you drive it off the lot, 20% of its value evaporates into thin air. Over a 7-year loan, when you combine interest, inflated insurance premiums, specialized maintenance, and fuel, that single vehicle can consume well over $100,000 of cash flow. That isn't just money spent, it is compound interest stolen from your future self. That same cash flow, invested in basic market indexes, represents the difference between retiring on your own terms or working well into your 60s. Because you can't afford to stop. The trap deepens when this mindset expands to housing. We are conditioned to believe that a house is always an investment, regardless of the price tag or the interest rate. So when a bank approves a buyer for a $500,000 loan, based on 43% of their gross income, the buyer treats that approval as a seal of financial competence. In reality, the bank isn't telling you what you can afford. The bank is telling you the absolute maximum amount of debt you can carry without immediately defaulting. When you stretch your budget to cover a mortgage, property taxes, skyrocketing insurance, and mandatory maintenance, you aren't investing in real estate, you are transferring your monthly surplus straight to an institutional balance sheet, while taking on all the risk. This creates a hidden crisis of solvency. You become what financial planners call house poor, sitting on $500,000 of illiquid brick and mortar, while stressing over an unexpected $800 repair bill. You hold an asset on paper, but in your daily life, you are operating with zero margin. This lack of margin alters your entire relationship with work and career risk. When you have no financial runway, you lose the ability to say no. You accept toxic work environments, pass up entrepreneurial opportunities, and refrain from negotiating aggressively for the raises you deserve, because you cannot afford a single gap in your paycheck cycle. When every dollar of your income is pre-committed to debt services and inflated baseline expenses, your employer doesn't just buy your time. They buy your compliance. You are locked into a cycle where you must keep working a job you may dislike, simply to maintain the lifestyle assets that were supposed to make you feel successful in the first place. The real tragedy of lifestyle inflation isn't that people enjoy nice things. It is that the enjoyment of those upgrades vanishes almost immediately, leaving behind only the fixed overhead. The thrill of the new car or the bigger house wears off in months, but the monthly payment remains for years. Real wealth is not defined by the height of your burn rate or the prestige of your possessions. Real wealth is the distance between what you earn and how much you actually need. It is the silent, unglamorous accumulation of assets that generate options, peace of mind, and time. When you accumulate your first $10,000 or $20,000 of liquid capital, something remarkable happens to your brain chemistry. You move out of reactive survival mode. A minor emergency ceases to be a catastrophe. It becomes a mild inconvenience. You begin looking at choices not through the lens of immediate cost, but through the lens of long-term opportunity return. Having a financial cushion provides you with what can only be described as walking away power. It is the ability to navigate the world from a position of strength rather than desperation. You negotiate better, sleep deeper, and make decisions based on where you want to be in 5 years, rather than how you will survive the next 30 days. To break the cycle of lifestyle inflation, you must systematically disconnect your spending from your earning power. When your income increases, the majority of that raise should immediately be redirected into wealth-building assets before your brain has the chance to normalize a higher standard of living. Stop measuring your success by what you can afford to pay for on a monthly installment plan. Start measuring your success by how long you could survive, thrive, and maintain your freedom if your primary income stream vanished tomorrow. The goal isn't to live like a miser or deny yourself the pleasures of life. The goal is to ensure that your money serves as a tool for your liberation, rather than an invisible chain that binds you to an increasingly expensive lifestyle you cannot afford to leave behind.